And hello again. So yeah, so continuing on from last week, so last time I had done a bunch of the kind of basic operations on things like strings, arrays, ints and bools. I just realized today as well that I didn't define, and it's probably all right for the moment, but haven't defined equality on the composite types, so such as array lists and objects. Now that's probably for good reason because I'm not even sure how it's going to function, and even in other languages you have kind of two levels of equality. You have kind of reference or kind of address equality. So when you use equals equals, it's like, are these actually the same objects in memory? And then you have kind of a language level equals method or function that will then do a kind of structural equality. I haven't quite decided what the approach would be here, but like it's not something that I'm feeling is too urgent for the research purposes of this language anyway. So so what so I had done a little bit of research into, well, just kind of clarifying my own thoughts about what to do about the issue that got brought up last week, which is just on the the exact, say, formatting of these kind of destructuring operations on objects. And I have decided, even though it's a little more heavyweight, that I will use the explicit syntax. And actually, so I think last time I had been saying, okay, it'll use strings on either side, but because the keys are, yes, always going to be strings for destructuring objects, but the right hand sides of these key value pairs are actually always going to be variable bindings. Doesn't really make sense for those to be keys. So that's a little more lightweight than the approach I was thinking last week. And similarly, the for the unspread operation, the identifier being used there is an identifier from the scope, so it won't be a string either. And what was this? Yeah, and I was just thinking today as well. I don't think there'll be a problem with using this shortcut, which will expand to. So if I had a equals x, and that would essentially expand to a binds to the key at, or the value at the key a binds to the binds to the value at that location. So I think that's all right, and then all of that will still allow for say actual evaluation of the keys. So if I did do something like this, it would mean evaluate the variable a, and then that should expand to evaluate to a string, and then use that key. I wouldn't expect that kind of a syntax to be used too often, but I actually quite like the consistency here, that the destructuring system kind of syntax is going to be using the same approach as the object literal syntax. Have I any other notes down here before I dive into that? Was there anything else? Yeah, I still need to do the for loops, and what was that? Oh yeah, shorthand for the unspread operator on arrays. So so have I anything else then? No, I think that was more or less it for I suppose the extra thoughts. Now, one thing that I was thinking about lately as well, I'm thinking about here's the trouble when diving into things like programming languages is not, well, yeah, you can, it's easy to focus just on the language itself and its syntax and pros and cons of all those decisions and all things like that. But as I'm building up the AST as well, I'm also considering tooling around it. So if I'm going to be adding a REPL, a read eval print loop, or yeah, that kind of yeah, I suppose a REPL is. Are there other names for those? But the same as say the likes of Python has. Basically, if there was to be a REPL, what that would look like, how it could function, things like that structurally, how it would, work with the AST. And similarly, another thing I was thinking about, where I've somewhat not painted myself into a corner, but I was a little short-sighted in how I've been structuring the AST so far, because it's very it's very it doesn't reflect how the language has been parsed. So the AST is almost like a processed AST or pruned. So there's a lot of structural information that gets discarded once as the AST is being built, such as comments and things. Comments get discarded probably even by the lexer. I'll explain why that is relevant in a few moments. And let's take a look at some other things that happen. So, for example, first of all, I'm not preserving tokens, so I lose all the information on where things are. So naturally, if I'm throwing up errors, I'm going to be losing line information. So that kind of stuff, I'll have to figure out how to preserve those kind of things. But also there are areas where I just simplify things, such as, oh yeah, so I never handled the if else statements. I'll add that to the, I'll add that to the to-do list, but I'm not sure if I'll be doing that today. I'll grab flow. So one thing I am doing in some of these areas is simplifying things. So in the area of expressions in particular, there are a few different kind of levels represent, like, this kind of area is more to define or to resolve conflict with how say operations of equal precedence, how they bind. So for example, is it for example, plus and minus, are those is it associativity, like are they left or right associative? But all that kind of stuff, well, that still gets captured somewhat in the nesting structure of the AST. But there are bits like here, such as the fact that I don't know what's a good example here, just where information gets discarded. Actually not coming up with some good examples, but I think in general there are, if I recall correctly, there are a couple of places where information is getting discarded, and where that in particular becomes relevant is if in time I decide to look into developing something like a language server, or an adapter for language server protocol, or something like what was the other one, like a formatter kind of similar to GoFumt. Then in those kind of cases, that loss of kind of information, of the kind of original lexical information almost, could make things trickier. Even though I do intend my formatter probably at the probably may not be very popular, but I would intend it for to be quite strict. Like, the rules will be divided up into a linter and formatter. But my intention for the formatter in particular, because even with, say, the likes of GoFunt, it is very nice in that it imposes a certain number of rules, but I think sometimes it even lets, I suppose, I feel like sometimes, and I've seen other linters or other formatters on top of GoFunt because of this, that feel that GoFunt could be a little stricter. And again, I find it so useful because it just eliminates kind of discussion about things that ultimately don't really matter too much, as long as, in my opinion, as long as there's consistency and there's a uniform way of formatting. I'm not too concerned about the rules themselves. I do have strong opinions on what those should be, but as long as whatever rules that are there are upheld consistently, then I'm not too bothered in general. And so I will hope to make my formatter, if it comes to that point, quite strict. But in order to do that, I'll need to preserve extra information, so more than what is currently being done. This is kind of quite a lightweight, in my opinion, parser and an AST structure. So I'd probably have to embellish it in order to do those things that I want with the likes of the formatter and the AST or LSP implementation. Anyway, as usual, I've rattled on a little too much. So what I shall do is I'll get to some coding. So first thing that I want to do is I will have to essentially reverse a change that I've made in a previous stream. So let me see the way things are structured. So test at the moment has that kind of thing. So what I'll do is I'll say that, I keep erasing these test.txt files, and they're probably handy enough. So what I'll do is I'll keep that as JSON stringify test, and what I'll do is I'm going to replace it with, so I'm going to set up a test for destructuring. So I'm going to have this new x, and we'll have a is equal to, let me think, 1, the usual stuff, b is equal to 2, and c is equal to 3. And then for the destructuring side of things, we'll set up some examples. So a will be mapped to a, b will be mapped to b, and c will be mapped to c. And that will be using declaration and so on. So, and then I'll print those at the end. So I think at the moment I have it such, or did I actually implement this yet? I'll have to double check. If I haven't, that'd be nearly handier, but I might have. Yeah, so in this destructuring syntax, I did allow this shorthand, or I said that you have to use the shorthand on this side. And so I'm going, so we can see that A, B, and C got assigned to 1, 2, and 3 as expected. So what I'm going to have to do here is I'll be reversing this decision and saying that, where are we now? Oh yeah, property item. So this whole name is string thing will be gotten rid of. So a name will always be, well, it'll always be a string for now, but that could be an expression in time. So I'll remove that and I'll update the AST name is string isn't a thing anymore. So now that will mean, first of all, we'll be getting not a lexing error, but a parse error at this point. And so that doesn't have the field. Yeah, so that's in the evaluator now. Oh no, that's an old copy of eval. So 443 and I think the implementation of how that was approached when it was implemented was kind of nice, that it was able to distinguish between destructuring and an assignment. But you know, I just like even though it probably isn't as ergonomic, I just like the mirroring, I suppose, of the destructuring and the assignment, or the destructuring and the object literals. And okay, so that's all there was to undoing that. So that's the first bit down. Let's check the to do. And so, oh, what didn't I commit last time? Was there a feature I didn't commit? Oh, I had just implemented. Oh, I had set up. I'd set up a workaround for the fact that we couldn't do recursive functions, so I'll need to actually split this commit up, and I'll need to sort that one out as well. So I'll just commit this one first. So skip that hunk, and I'm gonna skip that hunk, skip that, skip that, and keep that. And this will be kept as well. So this will be use string literals for keys in object destructuring. Okay. Use string literals for keys in object destructuring. Okay, I'm 2 characters over the limit. So okay, so then what I might do is, before I forget about it in that case, is I'll try and reinstate that that logic for allowing test JSON stringify to work. So this was test object destructuring, and I'll use this as test.txt now. That should compile and run. Yeah, that's the result we got last week. So what I want to do then is update those sections of eval to be not quite so hacky. So either, basically all the sections with either will need to be sorted out. Do I keep either, or will I create, because might be nice to just have a distinction between so like have functions have a function value here be an enum itself, and then the enum distinguishes between being built in and built in or not. So whether to do it that way. And how does this work again? So what it does here is essentially first it retrieves the function. So what's this? This is calling a function, and this just gets the function definition as is. This one yeah, whether I should create just two new functions, such as call built-in function and call regular function, or call user-defined function, something like that. I'll see where functions are used. So value func is there, there, and there. So how many positions was that? 1, 2, 3, and back at the top. So there it exists in 3 locations, and it probably wouldn't. And then value built-in function is basically just the 1. So it probably wouldn't be a big deal to refactor that. And this is, oh yeah, these are put in the same location because it's extracting the function out of the guard, but then it's like doing 2 different things depending on what the thing taken out of the guard is. So maybe it would make sense to refactor that. I think it would. I just hope it won't take too long. Again, this is one of these things that could be a rabbit hole that has caught me in the past on this stream. But we'll give it a lash, or will we? Yeah, because if I don't do it now, could go on to the next stream and I'll forget even more about what where this came from. Func value. Built-in should probably be all one word. It's all right. So func is then a func value. So then when we retrieve it, so the reason why I had to Yeah, so I won't be able to yeah, I think I'll split these up. The current structure doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't, do I really need this new enum to do that? Probably not. Like, it'd probably make more sense to just duplicate this guard unlock, because the built-in function version doesn't really need, or yeah, I suppose what I'll do first is actually before I commit to this new function value setup, I will um, just create these kind of specific functions. So this would be doing that. So will I do eval call or okay, so I'm not exactly sure, or I'm not sure the exact approach I'll be taking here. So what I'll do is I'll pretend I have it, oops, so I can get rid of that because I think I found out that it works. And oh, I'm missing a let v there. So I'll assume here that I've actually already split it up. So so I know that this is a value built-in function, and will I have to have removed it from a lock by this point? Not sure. So this is a tricky refactoring, and even though I feel like it should be a relatively straightforward one, but don't really want to take that big thing as a parameter. I'll just type alias it for the moment. So then if, yeah, if it's so I'll need to take a bunch of things here, I think. So when this is being taken out of the guard, the stuff we do take out of the guard is a copy of the statements, its current closure, and the the new scope that is being defined. That probably doesn't need to be defined. Why isn't an inner scope being defined for this? Built-in functions at the moment don't refer to any scope because they're being defined in Rust, so they're not being defined in the language itself, so they don't take one. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of tricky. I hadn't even been kind of planning on doing this part, or like I was planning to do the object destructuring today, but however, oops, let's see. What would it look like then if I took the yeah, that's the only thing, is I can only do this match on these variants once I have a lock on the function value. And once I have a lock on them, I might as well extract all the data I need from them. So the problem, like, is there much I can do with those? Now, one way I could clean up this is if I had both returning the same kind of stuff, because this is just returning something totally different to what this is returning, and then it's evaluating its result here and returning the result. Whereas if I had both returning setup stuff, even if that was all empty up here, it would at least make the part down here a bit more consistent, because both of them would be this would be the evaluation for both, and this would be kind of the setup for both. And yeah, that's probably the best refactoring I can do, because of this kind of, like, this nearly creates a coupling such that, like, we can match here to find out what the type of item is, and then once we've gotten that far, if we go out of the, like, the thing about calling two separate functions for them is that if I was to yeah, no, it just this probably doesn't make the most sense. So what I could do here is I could probably just return an option here, actually. I could say, hey, if this is, because I only need to retrieve, oh no, I would need, in the case of a built-in function, I would need to retrieve the function itself. So maybe I need a different type of thing. Yeah, so maybe instead of creating a kind of a general use either type, with tuples. Maybe, yeah, maybe that is the cleanest approach. I'll still and can I extract the f out of here at that point? Because I won't be able to clone the function, will I? I wouldn't need to, I don't think, unless built-in functions can be recursive. Yeah, maybe first of all, what I'll do is I'll change t to t, this to value and this to value. Small start, but it's one little improvement. Not that they're much better names, but they're slightly better. Is it S and T are usually used for types? Why does TU seem unusual to me? Maybe I'll just call it A and B. So with that done, yeah, because that's the difference between the built-in function and the regular function, is that the I'm not sure if the built-in function can be cloned, but that's so the built-in function has this type, but that's an interesting thought, is Rust clone function pointer. Yeah. So maybe functions themselves are clonable. And again, that would probably resolve the issue of well, actually, now come to think of it, the recursion issue in built-in functions wouldn't be the same as with regular functions, because with regular functions, the reason the recursion is failing is that when we call the function, we find the name of the function in the scope, and then we try to get a lock on that value so that no one else is, say, modifying that function at the point we're going to call it. So for the first call, we have a lock on it, and then once we have a lock on it, we start execute. At least with the old implementation, we start executing the instructions. And this is what's currently happening with the built-in functions. So we have a lock on that name, essentially, that function name, and we're executing statements. And then once we hit that function name again, we then try to look up that same value, that same name in our scope. And this second time that we try to access it and get a lock on it, we have a deadlock. But with the built-in functions, the name, when we're looking up the name as the built-in function is getting executed, then that's not going to check the name in the scope. It's going to check it relative to Rust's own I guess, lookup tables or Rust zone environment. So the recursion issue shouldn't happen in there. So that's actually so this actually doesn't stop recursion. So even if we can clone the function here, it's not an issue if we don't, because there shouldn't, at least there, in theory, the way I'm thinking now, it shouldn't block recursion on built-in functions as is. Having said that, I don't like the way this is kind of mixing concepts. So this is returning the evaluated value. This is returning a kind of a pre-evaluated value. Again, I'll get rid of this section. And then this part is just returning the value as is. This is then evaluating the function. It would be a lot nicer if these both could do the pre-evaluation type thing, like just getting everything set up and then do the evaluation down here. And I feel like it would just read a little better, even though what's there now is probably more efficient, so to speak, because we're not cloning the function. But maybe I'll clone it anyway, just to just for that consistency between the two sections. So yeah, I might try that. Either left value f, and then I'll put that down there. I'll put that back into there too. And we'll see, can I clone out of this? Some oh, that's just because eval isn't building, I'm guessing, because of my new call, eval call. So I have a bunch of things down here. I'm guessing they're not compiling. So what line was that? 719. So that evaluated the statements. Not sure why I have to clone things so much. Hopefully I can resolve those later. Match arms have incompatible types. That was returning an either. Oh yeah, my mistake. 676. Move occurs, values moved there, and then used there. Even though those won't be, those will be evaluated in separate threads. So maybe what I can do is similarly to how I'm copying what I need down there, I can move what I need in here. So sorry, that's vals. And why am I calling that vals? I should probably call it args. Oh no, it's already called args. And this sets up symmetry is the word I was looking for earlier. Symmetry between object destructuring and object literals, and similarly have a little bit of symmetry here. So if that works, I wouldn't be too upset. Yeah, so that seems to work. So 924. So I can get rid of those bits of experimentation. And just to confirm my hypothesis about the recursion here as well. So if I wanted to have a, what's even a good recursive function to try. So fib of x, how does Fibonacci even go again? So Fibonacci of 0 is 1, and Fibonacci of 1 is 1, and then Fibonacci of everything after that is the sum of the, oh no, I'm gonna have to look it up, of the previous two Fibonacci numbers. Yeah, so it'd be 2. Yeah, so it's just, so it should be, so let's see, value needs to be an int, and it needs to be an n. Yeah, maybe I'll use this instead as a basis. Fibonacci and n. I'll be using int n. And so what I want to do then is call, so it'll be match n with 0, and return 1. And 1, I return 1, and anything else, I return fib. That won't be an integer, so I'll have to just for simplicity, my own simplicity, this probably isn't great for performance, but I'll do it like that. Tell me more about this language of yours. Yeah, common question. Thanks very much for it. So yeah, just quick intro to the language I'm working on. I haven't put much into the README here, but and by the way, I have finally uploaded. Oh, did I close Firefox? I didn't mean to do that. But I have put the source code for this up finally, so everyone can find it on Izanmoto Norpal. So stands for Not a Real Programming Language. So NO from not, A is skipped, and RPL is Not a Real Programming Language. And the idea is it's first of all the branches in this. Although I think all these work in progress commits are just from the start of the project. There's better names for the other commits, but basically it's a kind of research programming language which I'm using as Yeah, as it says there, it'll be a basis for researching different approaches to syntax when designing programming languages. So the idea is this current language that I'm working on, and I can open up the say an example that we have so far. So here is say an early version of JSON stringify in this new language. So to be honest, it's a fairly run-of-the-mill C style language. It's got kind of a lot of familiar stuff. It has strings, integers, some composite types. It borrows a lot of ideas just from kind of a number of recent programming languages such as Rust and Go. It does a lot of some of the main features of it are around kind of composite type, destructuring, and literals, and it's basically just a mix of fairly bland, I would say inoffensive language design decisions for a C-style language. And once I've that done, I'll be using that as a basis for basically playing around with different, say, kind of syntactic innovations at that point. So what do I mean by that? Well, one language that I have been thinking about for a while, and that this will form the basis for, is basically a replacement to Bash. Bash is relatively good at what it does, but I do find the syntax quite cumbersome and overweight. You know, you don't have a number of basic types in Bash. It's nearly for compatibility um with almost command syntax, if I could call it that, rather than, I suppose, like it's kind of as ergonomic as I suppose could be reasonably expected given the constraints that it's working under. But basically what I'm thinking is I would like to write a language that kind of keeps the ergonomics that Bash does have, because you know it is very nice and lightweight to be able to do something like git clone ABCDEF, rather than something like even if you had some kind of code generator, because like this was the alternative, is like um how could we get the nice bits from existing programming languages into Bash scripts? And you could use reflection, you could use code generation, and you could come up with stuff like maybe this uh, git clone ABCDEF, and then move directory X to Y, stuff like that. And like that's fine, but it's not as nice as that. Like I feel that has to be somewhat appreciated. And furthermore, where these kind of things break down is like Git is a domain specific language for running commands. So you do have nice stuff like pipes and redirection and things like that. So and you can easily capture output, and yeah, it might not be what you want 100% of the time, and there are a lot of kind of rough edges. It does make a number of use cases easier than like if this mystery language that I'm using here, that I'm embedding into, was, say, something like I know Python, using popen or git cmd, exec cmd, you want to use pipes, you're talking about, okay, well, I have to set up a pipe reader here, and a bytes buffer, and I need to capture it here, and I need to process it down here, and I might need to set up a separate Go routine so that I don't block things depending on what processing I'm doing. And despite the warts, Bash does do a nice job of simplifying problems in the area of running commands. And I'm just thinking what could be done to keep what's nice about Bash, but add, you know, some extra conveniences from languages that we've gotten used to, such as, I know Bash has, support for arrays at the very least, and like Bash basically just supports arrays and strings. But what if we could have some extra types, some extra composite types, particularly objects or objects/hash maps and things like that. And even like while this syntax is nice and lightweight, I wouldn't mind if we could have a similarly kind of lightweight language, but still, one thing this is just a nitpicky grievance of mine, but I don't like, having to deal with, say, this. I find the using kind of line continuation syntax a little, I don't know, it doesn't appeal to me. So I'd love if, yeah, maybe we could keep, because this is what I end up doing for a lot of my scripts anyway, is because you might be dealing with a lot of flags. To make it more readable, I might have something like keep index and bear, and I'll have these I might have some special I might have a list of special arguments that I've built up, and I might have them there, and then I might have the actual remote repo. So what I end up doing a lot of the time, just to make things readable, because I do find that probably more readable than the likes of this, where everything's just on one line. I know it's relatively tidy, but I find this is just more scannable personally. So with that in mind, an ideal for me kind of syntax that I'd like to try, if I can, is to get rid of all those line breaky things and make things more explicit. So excuse me, for people who are familiar with Bash, the fact that this isn't quoted probably triggers some anxiety almost. Whereas with this language that I'm developing now, stuff like this is a lot more explicit. So if this is a list, then you would need to use the unspread operator to actually turn it into a list of arguments, and then this could just be used as is, for example. So that's one giveaway early on about a potential design decision for this future language is, despite, like when I encountered Bash and PHP first, I still don't think it was a great design idea from PHP's point of view, but for Bash, once I started thinking about the kind of alternatives, I did kind of come to the realization that these dollar symbols make sense for separating the variable namespace from the kind of program namespace. So I would be keeping those there, but the idea is to just make things maybe a little more uniform, little more structured, have some types, and just kind of make scripting a little more hopefully stable and more pleasant, according to my own whims, of course. Is it going to be a script language or a compile language? Thanks for the question again. Script language, very much so. I wouldn't have any plans to turn this into a compiled language for the foreseeable future. In particular, that is one kind of almost explicit non-goal of the language, is it won't be, performance and things like, it's very much going to focus on being a glue kind of a language, for tying different programs together, and for a kind of a glue language. And oh, I lost my train of thought now. Uh, it's going to be tie languages together, and it's going to, I suppose, yeah, it's the intention is that it won't be used for basically general purpose programming, or things like proper algorithms and number crunching. Like, it would explicitly delegate those to languages that are more appropriate for those kind of works. Where this hasn't worked out in the past is, I feel like Python probably started off with similar goals in mind, but because it was still very general purpose, it is being used for, like, NumPy. It's used for scientific calculation and things like that. So it did kind of bite Python in the area, in that regard, that it did start off with this explicit goal and was saying, listen, all programs are going to be single threaded and all this kind of stuff. And now it's being used for web servers, and we have is it twisted, so to our twister to try and tack on concurrency and things like that. So well, not concurrency, but actual parallelism and threads. Um, so whether it'll work out in reality, who knows? But some explicit goals of this are, you shouldn't be doing kind of like this language isn't intended to be used for kind of heavy number crunching and data processing and things. Those will be delegated, but it should be sophisticated enough that you can do kind of adequate text transformations. You ideally, this will, if you were doing a script in this language, you wouldn't have to go to awk or grep or sed or JQ or any of these kind of things. You could do 90% of the processing, of the text processing you want, just in the script, because of these kind of fairly flexible primitives. And so with that, hopefully, basically, yeah, what I'm doing is I'm addressing a lot of the grievances that I have with Bash anyway, and things that I find make my Bash scripts kind of more complex than they, and less readable than they could be. So oh yeah, sorry, and the other goal that I had slipped my mind was kind of that would be readable and developer friendly. Like, the focus is more on developer experience rather than squeezing every kind of bit of optimization out of the CPU, for example. So yeah, that would be those would be the trade-offs of this language. Um, so my own toyings with custom languages tell me that a big deal of work is the parser interpreter. Are you using your own parser or basing it on some existing solutions? Yeah, thanks very much for the question. So for this project in particular, now I'm not sure so I'll remove all my changes here actually, because they're not actually valid syntax just yet, but I'll pop open the parser solution I'm using. So I'm using so this is all being implemented in Rust, and the parser generator that I'm using is LALRPOP. I've actually been surprised with it's almost 200 lines, but I've been surprised with how much functionality I've been able to get out of not too much code. Like, I have found it to be fairly expressive for my needs anyway. And because most of the AST construction, for example, is basically just it is. I think LALRPOP kind of captures the AST building quite well. Yeah, 200 lines is nothing. Now, I would say as well, like I haven't that many features in the language just yet either. But for com uh, in respect of what is there, I do feel that LALRPOP has pulled its weight. Now, I've already encountered in this stream alone some warts with what I would consider warts with LALRPOP, which is things like you know uh, say an ability to parse comments easily doesn't come out of the box. When I get token errors, I still have to do a bit of extra processing to handle all those. But I have to say, I have been very impressed with what LALRPOP handles out of the box. And yeah, other than that, then so that's the parser generator, and then the interpreter itself and again, I found, like you can see here, that I have, and this will be the same with any language, but I have been able to just use a lot of Rust's own functionality to I don't have to implement this stuff from scratch. I don't, I'm not writing a compiler or anything, so I don't have to define these in low level terms. I can just reuse, I don't have to write my own definition of, well, these probably aren't good examples, but things like, for example, when I'm creating a list literal, so if I have a value list, where is the definition? Yeah, so if I define a list literal, I'm just defining that as a Rust list. I'm not implementing any low level memory management, any of that kind of stuff. So the fact that it is an interpreter, I feel, has helped me implement it a good bit quicker as well. And again, yeah, under 1,000 lines of code for what's in the language so far. And again, there isn't too much in the language either, but it does have kind of memory safety. It's safe against, say, concurrent read and writes. Like, for better or worse, every memory location is wrapped in a an arc mutex, so that if there are concurrent processes, they won't be able to interfere with each other. And there are a bunch of features in it so far, especially around composites stuff. So we've functions, and with closures, we have anonymous functions as well, indexing on objects. We also have, say, the spread and unspread operators on arrays, which is really nice for creating new lists and destructuring them into local variables. Similarly for objects, that's actually part of what I'm working on today. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I actually haven't done too much in terms of control flow. I've actually done kind of the bare minimum. But like what I would say is, for what is there, I feel like the combination of LALRPOP and Rust has kind of pulled its weight. It has thrown up some roadblocks in different ways, but in terms of, say, keeping even just the total line count fairly low, I've been pretty happy with it so far. I hope that answers your questions. So yeah, getting back to main and this Fibonacci implementation. So again, this was just a test. I'll actually be removing this again after, because I don't think I need a built-in Fibonacci implementation. But just to test that, recursion for built-in functions isn't affected by the mutex guard. I'll just continue on the implementation here. So Fibonacci of n is then defined as the Fibonacci of n minus 1, and I better make sure that I don't give a negative number in here, or else it'll never, maybe I should put that in as a check actually, to say, oh, if it's less than 1, but no, this is just a test, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Again, probably the most inefficient Fibonacci implementation you can have, but you know, this is just a test. So so I'll add that to the default global scope, and with that, let's see what errors we get. So 117. So I need a semicolon there anyway. Line 113. Yeah, I will need to. So that needs to be instead a vector of values, and those will need to be reference values. So let's try that. 117, what's the, oh yeah, so that's already been evaluated, so I can just throw V in there. And in fact, I don't even need that at all, do I? I can just do that, I would say. Line 112, expected value, but found an int 64. Yes, because I need to wrap that up in an int value. I'll have to do that for all of these. Oops. Uh, 112, use literal expected value int. Oh, yes. So I didn't initialize those structures properly, or those variants, I mean. And then last thing is 105, that has to be changed to that. Cool, and so that's just compiling the existing test. So I'll remove that for the moment. And this is, so to BM carts, this is an example of how the, say, comments aren't, say, working exactly how I'd like them right now. But the way the comment parsing is working at the moment is the first time I put in the comment specifier, then it will comment out everything else in the file. So everything that comes after it. So basically, if I print here, you know, nothing's going to happen down there because it's all been commented out by this one comment. So probably not exactly what you'd want for that. I have has been a bit of a challenge to get comments working correctly, but it's also not the highest priority right now, so not a big deal. So then let's try Fibonacci 5, and hopefully it won't go into an infinite loop and crash. Well, the result is wrong, but it returned at least. So let's see, or it at least finished computing. So what, oh yeah, so I need to actually add those numbers. That would certainly help. So how will I extract those values? Oh yeah, that would be painful. Do I have to prove that this works as I expected? Oh, might as well. The only reason I'm hesitant is because this will basically be throwaway code. Wait, I implemented this totally not the right way. So let's do this, just so convoluted. So when this returns, I'll get a And then when this returns, I'll get B, and then the result will be the addition of both of them. And A plus B, but I'll need to actually extract them out of the valref that gets returned. So I'll actually, yeah, again, because this, I'm not going to worry too much about panicking here. So what I'll do is I'll just destructure them directly and not handle the variance. So in that case, so it'll be a result. So I'll have OK there. And I expect the result to be an int. And same thing for B. So what's the issue here? And move that. 113. Oh, it's also in an arcmutex. So yes, so in that case, I'm going to have to match on it and unlock it. So that'll get me out of the arcmutex at least. So if I do that, let A equal that, and I'll get that out of it. And can I do that to replace A? I'll see if this works, and then if that works, I'll do the same for the other one. Method not found in the result. So can I? Oh, wait, sorry. So first, I would need to make sure that it's okay. Yeah, and that seems to be all right. Oops. Oh, no, do not want to do that. At least that's a nice thing that Rust wouldn't let me anyway. I don't think that would get caught by the borrow checker. Refutable pattern, because those aren't covered. So it, I'd have to put it as an if let. So maybe I'll just do that. If let. And I could return in the return. And if all that fails, then I'll just say no bueno. Do you plan to do any sort of unit testing to make sure you don't break stuff as it gets new features? Very good question, and yeah, good observation. So yeah, I do. I suppose the the branch I'm currently working on, I call it the work in progress dev branch, and it's I suppose primarily what I work on these kind of I have these regular Saturday streams, and I suppose I'm hoping for these would be kind of the, say, more fun, potentially more engaging ones, where I do all new language features all the time potentially. But then in between, I'll be doing a share, and those will generally be on this kind of work in progress branch. So I won't be, say, focusing so much on things like unit testing. But then I haven't started work on the master. I haven't actually made an initial commit to the master branch just yet. But the master branch will contain basically I'll be cherry picking the different commits from the work in progress branch, and as each feature gets added, my intention would be to add relatively comprehensive unit tests for each feature as it gets added there. But yeah, on this kind of main current stream, probably not. But in between each streams, I'll be attempting to do more. But the time for doing the in between streams at the moment is quite limited. But we'll get there eventually. Thanks for the question. So pattern error not covered. Ooh, so I'll need to put an iflet there as well. Loads of iflets for everyone. I'm glad this isn't code that I'm going to have to maintain, because I'm definitely going to delete this as soon as I've proven the concept. Unless I don't prove the concept, in which case I might just, I don't know, I'll just cry. So brilliant. There we go. So even though the recursion isn't explicitly handled, let's see, where was I even testing? So even though the recursion isn't explicitly handled by, let's see, expr call. So even though, oh wait, I'm close. Oh, I wasn't even, so it was working anyway. So in order to, so the old implementation was, what was the old implementation? I think, oh yeah, I just returned the value. So the old implementation performed the function evaluation up here in the area where the mutex guard is unlocked. And the issue with user-defined functions is that when we try to evaluate it, like I mentioned earlier, when we try to evaluate it in a scope, then if we have a recursive function, then when we try to unlock it, that reference again, it's already unlocked, so we can't do that. But the theory was that we don't have this issue for built-in functions, because it's not referring to the same scope. It's at the level of the implementation language rather than the target language. So what would I have to do here? I'd probably have to put an OK there. That's probably about it. And let's see, no, it's has incompatible types, so I would have to oh yeah, I have to put that in either. Oh, and I can just put it in a I can do that, and I can put that value in that can just be left as is, I think. Yeah, brilliant. And that works. So that was probably 20 minutes of implementation just to prove, just for a throwaway test to prove that basically that I'm not going mental, I hope. So oops, 7 714. In fact, I should just undo all of that. And then that should all be working again. I can remove fib. So then, and now that that's clear, so that's basically refactoring of some code that I had started or that I had developed kind of quickly last week in order to implement that that implementation of JSON stringify. So now that it's somewhat cleaner, actually that that implementation of either isn't doesn't need to be public. In fact, I think I have most of these defined as public when they really don't need to be. I thought I had a linter set up for this. Oh, I probably don't have the linter running on this dev branch as well. So that's another thing I need to do on the main branch. So no, don't need that. I will commit that, and did I never add test 4? I'll just add it now. And so my commit message then will be allow or enable calling functions recursively. And with that, I'm back to where I wanted to start today's stream, which was adding the new destructuring rules for objects. So let's see. So the first one, so basic destructuring has been implemented. So yeah, so we have that. I think renaming is actually implemented as a spin-off of that. So if I do test, so I'll rename this to JSON stringify, and I'll update this to be my main test. So I should be able to rename this to, yeah, so I have 1, 2, 3, and I should be able to change this to DEF, and it should work the same. I'm just renaming the bound variables. Yeah, and that works as is. So that actually came for free as part of the initial implementation of this. So so that goes there. So then the next one is the unspread operator. So we allow a variable to exist to be, or we allow destructuring into a subset of values. We don't allow that without the unspread operator in arrays, but we do allow it with objects. But what we'll also allow with objects is to unspread. Same as with lists, we'll allow unspreading the remaining items into into another object. And one cool thing, actually, yeah, I might throw that in later as well. Again, all the ideas you get when you're playing around with this stuff is unbelievable. It's distracting, to say the least. So yeah, so this unspreading has basically been implemented for lists already. So I'll probably use a similar approach here. So so the idea with lists was that if it's the last item, then you can have an unspread operator before it. Though this is different to expressions, because with an expression there is only one variant, whereas for property items you can have a string literal pair, or you can have an expression pair, or you can have an expression followed by a so this is for string literals, and we're sharing the implementation with destructuring, because there's such an overlap. So I suppose the this unspread only makes sense in the context of having an expression here. And the reason it's an expression as well is because, well, I'll save that for later as well. So so to do demo unspread to list, and I want to demo delete items. So alrighty then. Okay, so in that case, I think it's kind of nice up here, and I mentioned it before, that with, this isn't the only way of implementing this, but with this implementation we can actually prevent invalid use of the unspread operator at parse time. So we can't even parse an invalid structure here, or invalid source file. For this, again, I could split this out into different productions so that I could do the same thing for or I could, again, yeah, I could make this into last prop item, so that a regular prop item can't have the unspread, but if it's the last prop item, and it just returns a regular prop item, but then the last prop item can only be used here, and we catch it at parse time. It's kind of much of a muchness, because I'm still going to be capturing that that detail here. So whether it gets caught And I think it still gets handled in the evaluator anyway. It just will probably never reach that point because it gets caught at this point. But it's going to be handled at evaluation time anyway. So even though it'd be nicer for the sake of keeping the code kind of lean, I'm just going to what was I going to say, embed it? I'm basically just going to embed it in the existing production. So I have a spread prop item. Maybe I'll define this as an unspread. In fact, yeah, I should probably split these up at the very least so that you can't spread and unspread an item in the same one. Although I wonder, will LALRPOP allow this, or will it say that it's a whatchamacallit? Is there an ambiguity there? So no, it actually didn't. It doesn't mention anything about an ambiguity. So if that's the case, maybe I'll do the same up here, where at the very least at the very least this gets captured at so you definitely can't be both at the same time. But that will have an ambiguity. Because you can have an item. Yeah, so that definitely would have an ambiguity. Is there a way to do this one without an ambiguity? Is it always going to have at least a spread or an unspread operator? Because the thing with the above one is it might not have one or the other, and actually this could because this is being used for string literal or for list literals, it could be the case that we have, for example, a and and that's just on its own. It doesn't have a spread or an unspread operator. However, for a list, oh yes, if I'm going to have this shorthand notation as well, I could also have neither a spread nor an unspread operator. So yeah, I'll need to be able to handle that. Although now that I come to this point, maybe it'd make more sense to handle this idea of so I'll undo a blast of work that I'd been doing, because actually most of it isn't needed, and what I'll do is for an expression, maybe I'll handle this case first, where if you have a name, then it could be then that's a shortcut for renaming a key with that name to a variable in the local scope with that name. So so it won't be a pair this time. We don't, excuse me, we don't have enough information here. I'll need to change this to an expression at some point to allow for variables at that point. But so let's see, what's my test looking like at the moment? I will disable everything or comment everything out. And yeah, so I'm changing the order of in which I'm implementing everything. So first, basically want to implement the easiest ones first. So the increasing order of difficulty. So maybe I'll have in the AST, so it won't be a pair and a spread, it'll just be pair and var. And the var can be an expression, or it can be an, well, it could be a what's a good name for that? So pair and unary. Singleton. Because it wouldn't necessarily be a single name. It could be an object, or it could be a compound type. Maybe I'll just say item. So then the eval, where it used to say, I used to say spread. Or single. So then the next thing to do is, so I can either do value evaluation, unspreading, or can't remember what the third one was. So maybe I'll try unspread. Yeah, so we'll go back to unspread. Hopefully I'll be able to get this stuff done quickly enough, because I feel like it shouldn't be the most difficult, but it's not always this riddled with analysis paralysis. But these features are so similar that it's I'm like, oh, which one do I do first? So yeah, we'll do it like this. So same as above, we have is spread, and it'll be true if that's true, and if it's an unspread, oh no, sorry. The one I was going to do first, actually, yeah, was the third one, which was just allowing a single value in that place. And if it is a single value, then if it's a spread, then it can be any value. If it's an unspread, it can be any value again, but within reason. And if it's a spread, it has to be any value as long as it's a list. If it's an unspread, it can be any value as long as it's no, sorry. If it's a spread, it can be any value as long as it's an object. Same for unspread. But in the case of the shortcut, it has to be a variable name, just a single variable name. Yeah. So, with that all said, so where's the destructure definition? Again, yeah, like this needs a lot of refactoring, some very big functions in here. So if we bind an object, yeah, I should really, so that's binding something to an index. So then I want, whoops, what did I do there? So then if I want to bind an object, I go through each item. So that's binding to an object. Yeah, and so so if I'm going through each prop item, spread operator. So now we are allowing, so now this isn't a spread operator anymore. This is, or isn't only a spread operator. It could be just a single item. And if the expression there is a name, is sphere. But if the value there is a name, then we use that name as both the thing that's being bound, that should be taken from the source object, and it should be the new name. So so yeah, let's see, list item. So that's a list item, and then a prop item is Shorthand. So I did update that. So so first of all, I need to do a match to make sure. Well, this could probably be a an iflet actually. Oh my god. So match expression, and it needs to be a var. If it's not, then I'll need to return an error. Only if it's an unspread. So yeah, first of all, I'll have to check if it is a spreading operation. Then I'll have to make sure, I have to make sure that it isn't a spreading operation, because spread operator can't be used in object. I'll call it destructuring. Then if next thing I need to check is if it's a variable. If it's not a variable, then can only use variable name or variable name as for field. I don't know. I definitely have to come up with a better description here. Yes. And then the last one is the actual evaluation here. So this should hopefully be straightforward. So this should be a matter of the new right hand side is just getting the name, yeah, as below. It would be nice to be able to reuse that. Maybe I can put that in a function. And then bind it. Bind object pair maybe. So it would be, so it would take the left hand side, the right hand side. Oh, but it's building up. What's it building up? New LHS. Oh, it's not actually. Where is new LHS being defined? Oh, so it's just the name there as well. So so name will be string. It would also need to take the right hand side, the bind type. And so with those in place, so it'll need a bind name. Oh no, sorry, the LHS could be a could be an object in the case of the other thing. So that could be a valref. item name and bind type. So RHS get item name. This isn't a very clear function is the only thing. It saves me code, but it could probably do with a refactoring. So LHS new RHS gets bound to that, and then BT. So in that case here, oops, I'll just comment it out for now just in case I need to revert. But bind object pair, that would be scopes, not scapes. It would be new LHS would be the value, and new, it won't be RHS, it won't be new RHS, it'll just be regular RHS, BT at the end, the bind type at the end, and then the item name will be name. And then in the case of this, the LHS in this case will be the expression itself. The right hand side is the same as it was. The name is the name we've extracted from the variable. That's kind of cool, the reuse. I actually like that. And yeah, that would be more or less it. So then what are the issues that we're looking at here? So some stuff isn't being handled, of course. So we need to set up support for those. So first of all, if it's not an unspread operation, or if it's not a spread operation, could we use this syntax during construction as well? So for example, if we're going, so again, going back to commenting all this stuff out. So if I have A is equal to 1, and then I want to create X, and it's going to have A. So in the object literal, that's loud. And then if I had B1 or B2, and then I said B is equal to X, then all of these should have values. And it should be 1, 1, 2 for X, and 2 for B. So with that in mind, so I'm actually going to implement two kind of features at the same time. So if it isn't a spread, if it's a spread, then we, yeah, so it's building up this vals object. This is what to do if it's a spread object, or a spread thing. My words are getting so good. And then if it's not a spread, so it's just a single expression on its own, then it has to be, similarly to above, it has to be, so if let expression var, it has to be the same down here. It has to be an expression on its own. Otherwise, what was the error I gave above. Can only use variable name on its own. Again, not great in terms of error descriptions, especially since I'm a very big fan of having good errors, but it'll have to do for now. So if that's like that, then we get the value from, then we evaluate the variable and we assign it to the to a value with the same name in the object. So that would mean that we go vals insert the name, that's fine, and then the value will come from the environment. So the way to do that is to, if we have, is the same as if we had a variable expression. So just get the value from the scope, get the name, yeah, that's what we want. And I've given myself a big load of errors, but hopefully I'll be able to get through them. So we've just come up to the hour, so I wasn't able to get everything done quite as quickly as I wanted, but if I stay on for a little longer, hopefully I'll be able to take care of the rest. So 657, what was that? Insert, so that was the to string that I removed. 631 is spread, expected bool found a bool, and you have to dereference the borrow. Oh, because it's in okay. Anyway, so it should just be copied outside of that. I don't think there's an issue with dereferencing it that way. 487 expected a result but didn't find one. Right here. Ooh. 485 expected an expression but found a valref. Okay, so that needs to actually be an expression. So if I go check AST prop item pair, okay, so yeah, I should just be looking for an expression there, I guess. And 453, 4 errors. Yeah, you can just put some semicolons there. Four, 8, 6. name not found in scope because I changed it to item name. Uh, 482 and same there. Alrighty then, so that whoops, whoopsie daisy. Move. Okay, this could just be a move issue. So that could, well, there are two issues here. So value moved in the previous iteration. And what is it? The right hand side is a hash map. I think I can just pass it as a reference, can't I? But I'd probably have to update the thing to take it as a reference as well, wouldn't I? 445 value partially moved here. That's very interesting. Can I just do it like this? Expect. Oh, I could do it like that. So I just wanted to borrow it for the duration of this expression, which turns into a bool, and then I don't actually need the reference anymore. That's cool. At least that's what it seems like intuitively to me. I could be way off here. Again, Rust has been a tricky one to get my head around. So expect it. I feel like I can write it to a certain degree, but I still I really need to brush up on the fundamentals again now that I've been writing it for a while. So expected struct string, just use a conversion method, man. Borrow expression occurs here, but the move. Okay, so it doesn't do it for just the duration of that. So maybe what I could do is, oh, I see, because I'm not only am I taking the not only am I taking the value, but I'm taking the field from it too. That's a tricky one. Because I want the full object to pass into the function, but I also want to take the name out of it and pass it into a function. Maybe I could clone the name. Maybe let name. And I go name clone. So got a panic, but on the token. So it was token pair. Oh yeah. Again, I do want to remove the need for semicolons at some point as well. And that seemed to do it. So let's double check. First value is 1, so that's the value of A. Then in here we have A is 1 and B is 2, and then we've extracted B. So we've actually supported single variable usage in both or single value usage in both whatchamacallits, in both object literals and destructurings. And I think the syntax makes sense. This will be kind of expanded to a string. Can I do this? Do I support underscores in names at the moment? I seem to. Yeah, cool. So that was a 2-in-1. So I'll get rid of that temporarily. I'll just put it in my scratch space. And then I will remove that commented out stuff. I do need to support or handle the errors there. Whoops. So the bind object pair errors. So that is I probably need to do that or something. I can probably pass that. Here. And that should just be the same thing again. A lot going on that line though. I just split it out. And we might just add a comment that this function is used to simplify bind object, but the concept, but its signature isn't very clear at present. It should be clarified when possible. So then next is, yeah, so I can commit that. Yeah, keep that, keep that. Yep, nope, nope. Yes. And yeah, that can be kept. And I'll also add the test JSON string update. I think there's yeah, I can remove that new line. It isn't in the repo at the moment. So git commit that. So, oh, I haven't pushed the repo for a while. Was that? I hardly did all those commits today. So this next, this commit was what? Oh yes, add support for object field shorthand. And I will amend that because it's actually not a field, it's a property. And maybe I could fix the terminology around that as well. So where was single being used? Can't use spread operator in object destructuring, and the other one was with property shorthand. Improve error message. Description. And I'll run that as well. Cool. So nice one. With that done, that should hopefully. So what were the other two things? So what did the to-do list have? I'm good to go another few minutes, I think. So still have to do unspread. That's error handling. Confirm evaluation of keys. So if we have a is equal to string y, oh yeah, that means the left-hand sides can be evaluated. Have to do that. And I've done the shorthand. So that's destructuring shorthand. And also object literal shorthand. I'm not sure where that, oh yeah. So that is so with that all done, next I will try the unspread, I think. if there isn't something else to distract me again. So so I'll duplicate this test as object property shorthand, and then, oh no, it was in Scratch that I saved it, and I'll put that into the test. So this was, yeah, unspreading. So I have to jump into the parser, prop item, and this will now be unspread. And we can add that to the AST. And so then the next bit is what? First I need to take a look at the existing unspread areas for objects. Or in fact, this will tell me nicely enough because they won't be captured. So if it's a spread, then that can't be used in object destructuring. But if it's an unspread, then that's absolutely fine. So if it's an unspread, then we do one thing. If it's not, then we do the other thing. So if it is an unspread, hopefully we'll be able to use the same logic as what's used for lists. Ooh, this was tricky for lists, was it? Only because I was probably trying to be very smart with like using zips and things. So all that really should be necessary here is to go through the remaining items. So first of all, I need to ensure that this is the last prop item. If it's not, then that's an error. And then if it is the last prop item, I need to keep track of what are the keys that have already been assigned, and any ones that haven't been assigned, I will need to assign. So that's actually trickier than I thought. Okay. So what I could do is initially capture all the keys that are in the source object and just remove names from it as they're encountered, and then iterate through the list. So if I go, what's the Rust hash map keys. And I'm guessing that's some kind of set. But so let's source keys is the right hand side keys. Whoops. Yeah. And what operations do I have on those? Can I remove a key? What can I do? In fact, does this, it's an iterator. I might want to put that into, I might want to put that into a set. And Rust. Is it a hash set? Okay, so I could be here for more than a few minutes, but that's okay. So can I do that, I wonder? And so whenever I do a bind object pair, I'll remove the key. I'll remove a key. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do at all. SET, there we go. And remove. Returns whether it was there, and it's a mutation. Whoops. I assume there'll have to be a borrow there as well. The name in this context is a string. So then if it's spread, so I need to enumerate that and make sure that it's the last item. I think this is, I'm probably making a hames of it here, but I can't remember the syntaxes. So if I is equal to LHS len, I'm guessing, len -1 surely, then it's all right. Otherwise, unspread can only appear as last item in object, or on the last item in the object. And so if that's all right, then this is getting into a big function as usual. So we'll go for key in source keys. Again, nice one, I'll be able to reuse that. So it will be, oops, I think my earphones are don't have long left. Well, I've been speaking a bit too much, as you always. So let's see, do we have a name here? The key will be the name. the new left-hand side will be a variable that hasn't been created yet, but we'll create it here, where the name is the key as well. That's kind of neat. And the right-hand side will be the value as taken from the right-hand side. Oh, but wait. No, I'm making a mistake. The expression in this case oh, I was being very silly before. I completely mistook something that was happening. So in this case, yeah, it would have to be the var name, and the right hand side would be what we'll actually be building up a new object, so that won't go there, and this will go here, and the new RHS will be built up of values from the right hand side. The right hand side will have to be an object. Yeah, and we have the keys for the right hand side. So RHS, can I get like a subset or something? I wonder. Like get values into values. Swap over. So is that, yeah, the audio has now swapped over. Now I'll have to be careful about this, because sometimes the Bluetooth ones have a habit of reconnecting even once I've put them in the case. So yeah, I think it's still connected. So let's see, try grabbing values. That's an iterator for values. I might just have to do it kind of manually myself. Yeah, that probably makes more sense anyway. So the new right hand side will be an empty hash map. And so for key and source keys, in fact, I could probably do something fancy. Not that it's worth doing something fancy for the sake of fanciness, but I could probably do something like so RHS keys, do an iteration over them, and then make a list of pairs. But that can error, so I'll have to handle the error anyway. So it would be something like
And if I did a return in here, it would only return from the closure, I assume. So yeah, I'll probably just spare myself that heartache and just do it the somewhat manual way, but you know, don't think it's a big deal. So if some v is equal to RHS get, then I'll put it into the new RHS, insert kv, otherwise object doesn't contain property, oops, k. So that's that. Then the result had used the new RHS. Where is key coming from? What's key? So that's the value that's being bound to key. I won't need bind object pair in this case because I'm not getting. So this binds an item, a single item from the right hand side, but I don't need that. I actually need this piece where I'm binding a specific item. So the left hand side is similarly this, where the name is what? The name is the name of the unspread expression, and actually I need to make sure of that. Is that so this can be used for both actually. So can I use variable name for object property shorthand? I think I use the same word elsewhere, so maybe I can. Can I use variable name? Yeah, there's probably a better description. Not the best description, but it's probably better than the other one. Oh, and I actually just happen to write the same comment for both. So that's bind scopes, left hand side, new right hand side. That'll probably have to be borrowed, maybe. And then the bind type is fine. So with that all done. Oh dear. 17 error messages. And one error on line 40,009. Thankfully, I do not have 40,009 lines of source code. That is just some code generator issues. So prop item is unspread, doesn't exist perhaps. Is unspread. Single. Is unspread is missing. Missing field is unspread in the initializer. And everyone is complaining about that. UNSPREAD. In fact, if I highlight that, seems to be the same spelling in both. Of AST prop item in the parser. Let me take a look at if val is unspread is missing there. That makes total sense, but not sure why the parser generator is kicking up a fuss. And the source value is there as well, so maybe can I just write it again? Nice thing about this is that it just tells me exactly where that file is. Uh, 03E. Now why isn't it putting in the full thing? If I swap that around and swap it back, will that change anything? Will it recompile the parser? Is it just an issue that the compiler isn't being rewritten? Or that parser file isn't being rewritten? So that step 48 of 50 does seem to be the parser regeneration step. And there it is, yeah. Must just not have forced a redo of the parser. That's interesting. Anyway, on to other things. Close that, go to a val 661, and I need to handle is unspread here, and if and you can't use unspread in an object literal. Use unspread up. Maybe I said can't unspread. No. In string literal. Anyway, 6x2. One thing I will have to do at some point as well is distinguish between, because a number of these errors, the error handling mechanism I'm thinking for the next level language will be will kind of focus on simplicity, but the idea will be that it's very easy to catch errors and handle them, hopefully. It won't necessarily be focusing on robustness as such, but more ease of use almost. So one thing with regards to that is I would probably want to, so I'm just going to make a note of this actually, distinguishing between kind of catchable, say, like kind of catchable errors defined at the kind of evaluation layer, such as, oh, you tried to access, you got an out of bounds error and you can catch that. But there are some of these errors then where it's basically, it's almost like a syntax error or a construction error with the program, but it's only really getting, like, it's an invalid construction, but it's only being caught at the time of evaluation, which isn't great. It'd be nice to catch all of those before the program is even evaluated, because they can be caught at that time in general. But but the thing is, those will also result in like I wouldn't want those to be caught by the error handling mechanism. So catching syntax errors and generating them at runtime versus I suppose we'll call it compile time, but yeah, because I suppose compile captures a number of phases. But anyway, enough of that tangent. If it's the unspread operator, then we just give an error in that case. Nice and simple resolution there. So line 662, that has to be borrowed. Line 486, expected an enum expression, but didn't get one. Found a for the left hand side. Okay, maybe I'll move on for a second. 484. Can I do that? Oh, that's because it can accept a string or a reference to a string. Mismatch types. 477. Is this the same one? The expression is a and the new right hand side is an expected an arc. Oh, so that's just, I have to put that into a val ref, I'm guessing. I expected 461, expected a string, so insert that. 460 expected a bool, so that's an if let. Consider div reference in the borrow. 456. Yeah, I'll do just that. 444, same thing. That's not a string literal, that's an object literal. Anyway, recompile. Hopefully a few more errors gone now. Yeah, down from 16 to 9. Still not sure about this one. So expected a value in there. Yeah, absolutely. So that would be a, let the right hand side be a So that'll be vals value, and is it object and props. Then we have 461. Insert an arc, but found a reference. Ooh, yes, I need to clone that. 439. The keys expected a hash set, but found a collection. How do I? Can I do something like that to force the change? 469. What's the issue here? Is that 469? Yep. That doesn't look like the same thing. Oh wait, the line has changed. Item not found in this scope, so couldn't bind, and the name here will be, what's the new name? Oh, a name. Oh yeah, key. Ooh, that was a bit of shotgun programming there, I think. Just like, oh, whatever works. Source keys not found in this scope because they're now called RHS keys. 663 expected boo. Oh yeah. Then 469 expected an arc found a hash map. Oh, because I need to be using the new right hand side. 460 expected reference found a string, so it should borrow that. Method not found in hashmap keys. So how can I convert that to something useful? Rust hashmap keys to set. Cloned and collect. So I didn't seem to be too far off. 3 errors, nice one. And 461 should hopefully be easy enough to rectify. That just needs to be props. And now these ones, at least, it doesn't take up as much space on the screen now. But so what's the issue here? I thought this was compiling before, and the only issue is that it's taking that instead of that. Can I just update the and then 515? No, probably can't. So what's the reason for example, LHS being do I have to do an iter into maybe, or into iter? Oh, 6 errors. So these are now the bind errors. So let's see, 439. Change this to mutable. Yes, this will be sensible. In fact, that should handle a few of those errors. So we're down to 4, 448. Move occurs on name. So 467. Maybe we can. I guess we'll clone it. Seems a bit of a waste to clone it just for the sake of an error message that might never actually happen. But then I suppose once we get to this point, that new value will be dropped, but then it will have been wasteful to create it. I won't stress too much about it right now, but yeah, it'd be nicer not to do it. Move occurs, props insert. And that probably needs to be mutable. Also, that I never actually initialized that. Does that matter? Never even thought of it. Oh, hey Tomacrav. You've been on the stream before, I think. So, so move occurs because props has a hash map, because it can't be copied, and the value is moved in a previous iteration. Where is the move happening? Should we create it there? And 472 is the loop. What? No. Okay, let's check out one of the other errors. So 429 maybe. Borrow of moved value LHS 457. And it's moved here. So yeah, I should probably do the check the do the check there. Whoops. 2 errors. So we have an issue with RHS keys, and we're going, whoops, for K in the RHS keys, it's moved during the implicit call into iter. Ah, interesting. Consider borrowing to avoid moving into the for loop. Okay, can I do that? And it's saying I just need to update that one. Or is it because that gets moved when it's, okay, iterated over? That makes more sense now. So the last one then is this one on 459. Okay, we're coming up. We've come up to the 3rd hour now, so I won't stay too long now, more than this, I hope. But let's see. Move occurs because props as a hash map type, and it doesn't implement the copy. And when we perform the insert, it's borrowing the type, or borrowing the value after it's been moved. But where does it get moved? It gets moved down here. Surely it would get dropped. Is it because I'm doing this daft thing? And I should be creating a new hash map. I don't even know how to create it. So I just nice, cool. So yeah, not even sure what I was doing before. The error message there definitely wasn't the most descriptive, but it looks like this is running now. So with that said, we now have something to test that with. So x, yes, so this is then a literal, an object literal defining ABCD with their ordinals, well, relative to the object. And then I use destructuring to assign the value with the key A to V, which works well. So V turns into 1. And then it creates all the other values going to rest, which are B, C, and D, and they get all the correct values. So that's very nice. Now, one thing I probably didn't implement, but I was confusing myself with whether it made sense or not, and it actually, I think it does make sense. Oh wait, no, it doesn't, because I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could do O, B, C, D? But no, that makes no sense, because you would just, number one, at least doesn't make sense here. Well, it could perhaps, I don't know, but what makes more sense to me right now is that you would put an object in here, but then, you know, you'd have B, in which case you'd just put it up here and you get the same effect. So, you know, it really doesn't make much sense to put anything other than a variable here. So, but what is neat is that we can use this, and I, you know, you can probably do this with, I assume, JavaScript and things as well, but I hadn't thought of it before, is that we can use this kind of a syntax to basically delete item, create a new object by deleting items from the old object, so to speak. So I want to put A into a new variable, and I want to create a new variable with the other items, but I want to remove B and C from that object, and here's the result. We get D in the end. So that's kind of neat, that you're able to kind of delete items that way. So so that was demonstrate unspreading to a list. Yeah, that's the thing that isn't possible, or doesn't make sense in the current context anyway. And we have the demo of deleting items, which is possible and does make sense, I think. So that kind of brings me up to speed. Let me I'll just commit that first. So yeah, adding unspread, add all that, don't add that, add this though, and update the example, and I'll add the new test file as well, and git commit, add support for unspread in object destructuring. Will I hit the limit again? No, coming in at 48 characters, so we're all good. So to jump to the to-do list then, there was actually a lot more work in that than I expected, but unspread is now implemented. So that goes under destructuring. So then the only bits left are, and this needs to be done for lists as well, but just preventing reassigning the same name more than once. That shouldn't be the most difficult. And then the last one is confirming the evaluation of keys. So that, to remind myself of that again, oh yes, that's just, that is, we can allow an expression on the left hand side of a key, so that we can have a string variable instead of a string literal. I won't do that now. I think that's plenty for today, but so I'll be leaving it there. I'm posting a couple of these on YouTube as well, so Izanmoto channel, I know it, so I've smortmark as my Twitter and Twitch, and I have Izanmoto for my GitHub and YouTube, so things are a bit confused, but was it? Yeah, I'm sure people will be able to find them if needs be. So that more or less kind of finishes it for me today. Thanks very much to everyone who watched and participated, and I'll be seeing people probably not next week, but more than likely the week after. So thanks everyone, talk to you then.